Welcome to the 9th Annual Appalachian Ohio State of the Region Conference, addressing infrastructure and Appalachia's future. We've all had a very difficult pandemic, and we just had another 16 minutes of issues. So thank you so much for sticking with us for that. We really appreciate it, and we have some great content to show you. I'm Faith Knudsen, Director of Social Innovation and Entrepreneurship at the Voinovich School, and I'll be your host, meaning hopefully that you'll see very little of me, as I will offer the basics and move aside for the substance. We so appreciate you joining this virtual gathering about shared successes and goals in our 32-county region. I'd like to give a special thanks to those of you in the region's economic development, workforce, higher education, local government, and public service sectors, and especially to the public health professionals and frontline workers for your tireless efforts during the pandemic. These past 12 months have seen a lot of incredible barriers overcome, and many of these stories are going to be on our stage very shortly. So a quick review, first of all, of our virtual event toolkit. On your right is our live chat. Please do use it liberally. Give us your website, give us your LinkedIn. Feel free to have sidebars with old and new connections. For sessions with audience Q&A, please submit your questions via the chat. Below the video player are links for breakout sessions later this afternoon, as well as the entire conference schedule and our presenters' biographies. For those who are more social media savvy than I am, please post or tweet using hashtag OHIOSOTR, Ohio SOTR, and tag the Ohio University Voinovich School account. And now let's open with a few remarks from Ohio University's 21st president, Dr. M. Duane Nellis.
Hello, I'm Ohio University President Duane Nellis. I'm honored to welcome you to the 9th Annual Appalachian Ohio State of the Region Conference. Ohio University is committed to taking a lead role in economic development for Appalachian Ohio. We are proud to host this conference, which is made possible thanks to our partnership with the U.S. Economic Development Administration and Bowling Green State University. Recently, the U.S. EDA awarded Ohio University's Voinovich School of Leadership and Public Affairs a $2.2 million investment in our region. This funding is designed to help accelerate the region's transition from a coal economy through a new program called Resilience Initiatives for Southeastern and Eastern Ohio, or RISE Ohio. By partnering with organizations such as the Ohio Development Services Agency, Appalachian Partnership Incorporated, the Governor's Office of Appalachia, Ohio Southeastern Economic Development, the Appalachian Regional Commission, and local development districts throughout the region, we ensure that Ohio University is making an impact in the areas that are needed the most. Appalachian Ohio faces unique economic challenges and emerging opportunities that no one organization can fully address. Partnerships such as these between Ohio University and organizations across Ohio are essential as we work together to support a future of economic diversification and community resiliency. I'm amazed at the work of our partners, and I'm inspired by the ingenuity that I see across the Appalachian region. It is my hope that we can come together at this conference to improve the quality of life in the region, and that the conversations from this conference will continue in the months and years ahead. I pledge to you that Ohio University is committed to working with each of you in order to help this region that we all hold dear. We will change the narrative of Appalachia. We will invest in our future, and we will work together to create a brighter tomorrow. Thank you.
Our region has been long and fruitfully supported by the U.S. Department of Commerce's Economic Development Administration, most recently by the RISE Ohio grant. As the only federal government agency focused exclusively on economic development, the EDA played a critical role in helping communities across the nation prevent, prepare for, and respond to the coronavirus. We are so grateful to the EDA's commitment to the region throughout these challenging times. I am now very honored to welcome one of the EDA's leaders who has been supporting locally developed, impactful, and economic development strategies with the administration since 2013, and has made a vital impact helping our communities over the past year by awarding more than $150 million in regular disaster supplemental and CARES Act funding. Please welcome the Regional Director of EDA Chicago office, Susan Brehm.
Thank you, Faith. Good morning, everyone, and welcome to the 9th Annual Appalachian, Ohio State of the Region Conference. A mouthful. As Faith mentioned, I'm Susan Brehm, the Regional Director for the Economic Development Administration's Regional Office serving the Great Lakes states. This conference has always been informative, and while I wish we could gather in Athens, I appreciate the OU team's efforts to make this forum available to a broad audience. These are daunting times for economic development, but we also have a tremendous opportunity to pivot toward a recovery framework that is more inclusive, more equitable, and more likely to reach underserved populations. And that's really exciting. Thank you for inviting EDA to join today. I know I speak for Economic Development Representative Ellen Hines as well when I say we are here to work with you and support you as we all move into the next stage of recovery. Thank you, Faith. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you so much, Susan. It's now my pleasure to kick off our first session focused on bringing transportation infrastructure and development to Appalachian, Ohio. The Executive Director and the Transportation Planning Coordinator of the Ohio Valley Regional Development Commission, John Hemmings and Stephanie Gilbert, will open the session with a presentation on feasibility and safety studies grants. After their presentation, we will have time to answer a few of your questions.
Okay, so in 2013, the RTPO program was established in Ohio. It started out with 5 RTPOs. I think maybe you can see the map here. But OVRDC was chosen to be one of the RTPOs. We serve 11 counties in that capacity. Sorry. So with that, our first 2 years, we were tasked with developing a long-range comprehensive transportation plan for the region. Once that was complete, there was a lot of freedom from ODOT to decide how we were going to serve the region in our new transportation capacity. With no capital program, it was hard to convince locals that there was a value in what we were doing. They were skeptical about working with us. They were concerned about the future of an RTPO program and where that money would come from. Would it come from other programs that they were already receiving money from, therefore hurting them potentially in the long run? So we had a lot of hurdles to overcome to establish ourselves as an RTPO. We started out by offering services such as grant writing, data and mapping services, but we just couldn't seem to get any traction or make any real impact. So we started thinking about how we were going to do that. We were constantly asking the locals, you know, what do you guys need? What can we do for you? How can we be of value in this platform? And the question was always money, or the answer was always money for projects, you know, money for engineering, money for match. None of those things could we help with our planning dollars. So then we started asking the question, how can we use our planning money to help? What is needed to move projects forward? What is needed to acquire more funding? How can we take planning dollars and turn them into project dollars for the people that we need to help? The answer kept coming back, studies and plans. So with that, we started developing a program to offer studies to locals. So we worked closely with ODOT Central Office, came up with some ideas, and finally in September of 2017, we issued our first request for proposals for transportation-related safety and feasibility studies. We set aside $20,000 of our budget to do those with the intention of doing 2 $10,000 studies in that round. We thought we would, you know, bid that out, use a consultant to do those studies for us. So we issued the RFP, basically transportation focused, could not include any engineering, and it had to be federal aid route. Other than that, basically we just needed to know where the study location was, what the need, the purpose for the study, any supporting documentation if it was a safety project, if you had any crash statistics, you know, we request that you send those in. We really like to keep it short and sweet, so no more than 5 pages. Some people feel like they need to send in a bunch, but really just the basics is all we need. And we also put on there, what areas, just for some ideas: safety, active transportation, traffic counts, economic needs. Anything transportation related really falls into this study program. So kind of the first year we received 4 proposals, and out of those 4 proposals, we funded one through a consultant, and we went through the whole bid process. We used a local university, Miami University in Oxford. They completed one of the studies as a senior project. And then we worked with ODOT Safety to complete one of the others. So, and I'll talk a little bit more about the projects here in a minute, but a little bit about the process for this program is basically we issue an RFP usually once a year, sometimes twice a year if we have additional funding. Each year in our work program budget, we set aside a certain amount to do funding or to do these studies. And then if we have extra money, halfway in, we look at our budget, and if we're going to have extra money, we try to do another round. So the RFP is issued. They have about 30 days to submit a proposal. Once we receive that proposal, we take about 1 to 2 weeks to review them, rank them. We have a ranking system that looks at things like, is it active transportation? Is it transit? Is it going to be duplicating service? Is it safety related? Have they received funding in the last 3 years? Those are some of the things that we look at when we're ranking the projects. Another thing we look at is there another funding source out there that we can use and save our money to complete more studies? So if it's safety and there's a large safety need, maybe we can use the ODOT safety program. If it's, a school travel program or safe routes to school, something like that, a lot of times ODOT has some other local assistance program that we can use. So once we look at that, we decide which ones we are going to pay consultants to complete. We submit those out to our consultants. We have consultants on contract, and if they're interested, they provide us back a scope and a quote. Then we review those and we submit them to the person who applied for the study and let them review it, because we feel they know what they need more than anybody. So they can look at the scopes. It's not necessarily always the cheapest scope that's submitted, but it's the scope that best meets the needs for what their study is. Once we get that back, we get it to our board for approval to enter into the task order. And then we move forward. So usually it's about 90 days from the time we issue the RFP to the time we get the ball rolling on the study. And I want to talk a little bit more about consultants. The first time we ever did this, we had to go through the whole bid process. That's a lengthy, cumbersome process. We got a lot of bids, so we had to sort through all those and try to choose one. Through that process, we learned about ODOT's task order consultants. And basically, ODOT has consultants on contract, and they can use any of those consultants to do any studies whenever they need without having to go through the whole bid process. So before the second round, we issued a request for qualifications for consultants. And we got about 15 responses to that, and we kind of looked at who was most familiar, had experience working in our region, who could meet our DBE goals, which were set by ODOT. As we put this in the budget, we had to meet a DBE goal. Who had experience working with ODOT, what areas of transportation they had experience in. We need people that can do safety. We need people that can do transit. So once we looked at all that, we chose 3 consultants and entered into contracts with those 3 consultants. So for that, we are able to use those consultants for this program as well as anything else in-house. If we have some other idea for a study, we can use those consultants for that as well. There are current consultants, contracts expire this fall. So in summer, we will be issuing a new RFQ for consultants. So if you're a consultant out there, you're going to want to keep your eyes open for that. This process has been working great for us. We have great consultants, and we look forward to continuing that process. So to talk a little bit about some of the studies that we've done and kind of how the program has evolved and how it's leveraged additional dollars. In 2018, like I said, was our first round. You can see here we had 2 studies, Pike and Sciota. The Pike one was pretty just standard, but you see here our limit for that year was $10,000. The study cost was $15,000. So the locals had to agree to pay that additional $5,000, which was not an issue. On the Sciota County Road 503 Safety and Feasibility Study, you'll see here that this study, which was supposed to be $10,000, turned into a $46,000 study. When we started looking at the data from that, this was a 1-mile section of road that had over 80 crashes in a 3-year period. So obviously we took that to ODOT safety and were able to get them to fund the majority of that. We still kicked in our $10,000 and the locals put in $3,600 and was able to get that study completed. So that's a great way for us to just solicit studies and to help leverage more dollars for our region. Skipping down to 2019, the active transportation plan in Sciota County, same kind of thing. The city of Portsmouth submitted a proposal for a school travel plan. I knew that there was local assistance from ODOT for that, so I contacted ODOT central office, and they basically told us about a new program for these active transportation plans. And that with those, there was a lot more options for funding, not just safe routes to school, but it opened options for the county as a whole to apply for all different kinds of funding. So ODOT ended up covering the entire cost of that one, and then we were able to fund an additional study that year. And you'll also see that we upped our budget that year to $20,000 studies. So we are now setting aside $40,000 for those studies initially out of each budget. In 2020, we had 5 studies. Again, everything: speed studies, corridor studies, traffic impact. We're starting to see more transit studies, and those are very good. ODOT likes to see us doing those, and they lead to more money for the region because the transit providers have to have those plans in order to apply for that funding. So far, we have leveraged a little over $1.6 million, and we expect to see that number grow, through the years, not even through future studies, but still through past studies, producing more grants and more money, as we move forward. So speaking of moving forward, we continue to grow the program. And one thing in growing this program that we have been doing is building a lot of relationships. We're building relationships with locals. We are definitely making a name for ourselves as an RTPO, which was the goal, when we started looking at how we could do that. We're building relationships not only with locals, but also, strengthening our relationship with ODOT, because we're continually working with the local districts as well as the consultants. And through that process, we're also developing a lot of expertise. Right now, the consultants are a great resource for these transit plans. But moving forward, at some point, we may just be able to do them all in-house because of what we've learned through this. We hope, in the future to work in conjunction with a capital program. I know John was going to talk about the transportation budget, and there being some additional money in there for RTPOs. So we don't know what that looks like. But we're hoping that this is a first step. We'll already have the studies in hand. We'll already have projects more in a ready to go phase. And we'll continue bringing additional money to the region. And then, as this program grows and we can no longer just take it out of our budget, we hope to seek additional funding from ODOT for continued studies. So that is what we have, and there's our contact information, and Faith will send it back to you for questions.
So thank you so much, Stephanie and John. You really are invaluable public servants, and I was particularly impressed that you've taken the consulting expertise and are bringing it in-house and being able to pursue all of the things that you're doing internally. So I'm really impressed with that. And I'd like to thank you so much. I would like to say that we are going to move past Q&A here because we'd like to move into breakouts and make sure that we take advantage of the time we have. But if folks do already have Q&A for Stephanie and John, they can look in the chat. And they will also be willing to talk to you individually, of course. So thank you so much, Steffi and John. And we're now going to go into our transportation breakout sessions, and you'll find the titles of each breakout session linked in the breakout pages in the conference schedule. So if you could look below and find that. And the first session is going to be concentrated on construction and technology initiatives, and the second on transportation services. The construction and technology session will highlight two programs, the Youngstown Smart 2 Network and the Roadmap Initiative. And our transportation services breakout will entail two presentations, the Ohio Rural Intercity Bus Program, branded as Go Bus, and then Mid-Ohio Mobility Solutions. And after we've had those interesting sessions, we'll reconvene here at 1 o'clock for our next session on site development. So we will see you then. Welcome back, everyone, and thanks to each of our presenters and breakout moderators. I was very happy to be able to watch a portion of one of the breakouts, but happily the conference is being recorded, so if you were torn as to which session to attend, you, like me, can review the other presentations in coming weeks. Be on the lookout for an email in your inbox about when the sessions are available for on-demand viewing. We will end today with several presentations and a discussion on site development in the region. And I would like to say that I've been talking with our folks backstage, and they're going to form their conversation to the time we have remaining. And they have some great content to discuss. So I would like to invite our moderator for this session, Ohio Southeast Economic Development Site Selection Manager, Donna Hrezo, to the virtual stage.
Thank you, Faith. Good afternoon and welcome to the site development panel discussion. As you know, site and building development is a critical piece for business attraction projects. However, speculative development is not easy. It always involves an element of risk. Today, we have three presenters with us who will share their experience of successful site and spec building development and how to be ready for the site selection projects. Before I introduce our first speaker, I want to mention that if you do have questions, please drop them in the chat box and we'll have a time for question and answers with our panelists after their presentations. Our first presenter is Tanya Krist. Tanya is founder and principal of InSite Consulting and is able to share with us her experience of the importance of being ready for site selection projects from the perspective of a site selector. Many of you know Tanya through her work with Jobs Ohio through the Site Ohio Site Authentication Program. She's joining us today from Greenville, South Carolina, where she lives. And for more details on her background, I encourage you to check out her bio, which can be found below the presentation screen. With that, I turn this over to Tanya.
Great. Thank you, Donna. And thank you all so much for having me there / here today. It's always exciting to talk about the dirt because as I always tell everyone, we have a lot of fun in the site selection world playing in the dirt. So thank you for having me here to talk about this very important conversation that everyone's having with regard to ready sites, ready buildings, ready product, however it wants to be coined now. Sometimes you'll hear certified, etc. But the really true word that we're looking for emphasis here is ready. And so I think one of the important things is I kind of want to turn this piece of the puzzle inside out and kind of talk to you guys from the site selection side versus that of the economic development side. So ready sites are in the conversation very, very quickly, okay? So it's important to understand that the client truly has to be ready before the site is ready. Now, why I say that is because of this. The clock starts ticking from the time our client signs a contract with a customer that basically says, I'm going to produce this widget for you in this amount of time. So it will be ready for you guys, okay, to purchase and to distribute. And there's a timeline established, I guess, way back in the client alignment meeting long before, I guess, anybody hears about the site. So what's important for you guys to ready is the client has to be ready for their customer. And in order for them to be ready, okay, they have to find ready sites. So what do I mean by that? So let's dig back a little deeper. When the client is negotiating with their customer on a timeline, okay, the timeline, the greatest bottleneck or risk piece or holdup, if you will, is actually the site. Okay, and it being chosen and then it being constructed upon so that they can actually produce for their customer. And what's important for everyone to know here and a takeaway is two things. Number one, the timeline is very, very fast. Okay, so the customer wants the product to be manufactured very fast. So in the beginning with the client, there is no place in the timeline for infrastructure being built to the site, for zoning to be changed on the site, etc. Now the site has got to be ready. Why? Because the client has not allocated any time into their schedule, okay, that they are presenting to their customer with regard to when they'll have product, you know, I guess online/offline to the customer. So if you're wondering why the site needs to be ready, it's because in actuality, the client has to be ready for their customer. So there's a little bit of, I guess, exchange of information, kind of wording going on here, but the key is all about schedule, okay? So when we say that we need ready sites, okay, we mean we need sites that are ready, that have infrastructure, that being electric, water, sewer, natural gas, electric as basics to the site boundaries with excess capacities, okay? And that's exactly the reason I was saying is there's no time allocated in the client's project schedule that they ultimately are going to deliver to their customer for extensions. Why? Because there's so much can go wrong in that process. So if you're extending lines, infrastructure lines, there's right of ways to be considered. There's the public, there's the people. All of those are risks to the schedule. Can we get that line put in fast enough? Okay, so now clients don't even allocate time for that. They want to make sure that the infrastructure is to the site and or park and building boundaries, okay? The same way with excess capacities, okay? Our client doesn't build in time for their customer for excess capacities to be accounted for, to be developed, designed, and developed for at the local level, okay? Because keep in mind, their customers are choosing our client based on faster, better, cheaper, smarter. Okay, so that's a very important phrase to understand. So they are going to find the site that has the least amount of risk to schedule, okay? And the biggest bottleneck or the biggest risk occurs in the actual site and how it can be developed. So it's important to understand that the client has a schedule they're trying to meet that doesn't allocate the community's need to get the site ready, okay? So the original project schedule is all, I guess, built upon finding sites that are ready today, not that can be ready in the future, okay? Those sites are not what we are considering. And what is important to understand also now, and things have changed, is that number one, it's a very competitive. Economic development is very competitive, okay? Every site selection search, typically whether we're doing it or Caterpillar's doing on their own, usually starts with about 150 to 200 sites. Think about that if you're trying out for a team, okay? It's very competitive, okay? Also, the second is it's risk adverse. So everybody doesn't get a trophy. And so they're going to find the sites that work, okay, not the sites that can work given a certain amount of time, because any site can be ready with a certain amount of time. So it's very, very important that your takeaway today, number one, is the client's schedule to their customer drives the fact that now they have to look for sites that are ready, which means there's no allocation for infrastructure, development, construction, zoning changes or classifications. The sites have to be literally plug and play and ready to go. The key is, I guess maybe for you guys also to understand is that the competitive nature here is that if your site is not ready, it gets eliminated. Okay, everybody hears this, but a site selection process is a process of elimination. And if you'll liken it to you choosing a house or a car, there's certain things that makes that house ready for you to purchase or viable for you to purchase. Okay, same way with the car. And those certain things all have to do with infrastructure, water. You got to have water for your house and your car. You've got to have sewer for your house and your car before you guys will ever invest in it. Okay. And if so, for some reason the car or the site doesn't, your site for your house doesn't have enough water, and the car won't start, or you can't turn the water on your house, you'll find a house or a location that does. So it's important to understand the client can find ready sites now. Ready sites are important to their equation. And a great example of this is, being ready doesn't just necessarily mean the site, but also the community. We, a few years, I guess a year ago, worked about a $400 million zinc recycling project. And probably the fact that we went to a site that was ready, was the community the best of the best? Probably not if you just looked at them on paper, but the fact that they were ready and could get the information to us on time, the site was ready, etc. That $400 million investment went to a 15,000 person community. Now the region was 500,000 in population, but at the same time, the ready site, in addition to the ability to mobilize on the local community's part, made that $400 million decision very easy for us. So keep in mind, there's a lot of sites out there, and a site that's ready doesn't mean it's flat and has pretty grass and is on the interstate. That's not a ready site. Okay. And we all see all types of sites with the certification name, with all kind of brands. We have certified sites out there now that don't have natural gas to them, which is a must. That's not a ready site. So the key is, keep in mind that the client is on a timeline that will not take time for the site to get ready. Okay, they have input into their timeline a site that is ready, that they can plug and play, okay, and build on as fast as possible and get their product to their customer. Okay, so keep in mind, sometimes you guys don't see that full equation, and the ready site's the key. The less the risk, the better the site. If it's not ready, it won't compete. So hopefully this has been quick, but I appreciate the opportunity to give you a window into the world of the decision-making process about, ready clients means they have to have ready sites because they have to be ready for their customer. And that means it has to be expeditious and risk-free. And that's why it's so important at the local level, because it's very competitive now, and local communities just have to be ready in order to compete for those jobs and that investment. Donna, I appreciate my time. I will turn it back to you, and thank y'all so much for the opportunity to be here from Greenville today.
Thank you, Tanya. We really appreciate your joining us today. Our next presenter is Perry Varnadoe. Perry is the director of the Meigs County Economic Development Office and Meigs County Community Improvement Corporation. Perry's been with the CIC for 25 years, and under his leadership, the Meigs County CIC has gone from an organization with $5,000 in assets in 1997 to one with $12 million in assets today. The CIC has led numerous developments, including an industrial park and with 5 buildings there. For more details about these developments, check out his bio below below the presentation screen. And I thank you, Perry, for joining the panel today, and turn this presentation over to you.
Donna, thank you so much, and what a great presentation by Tanya. I'm going to talk a little bit today about how to enhance your industrial park, especially in our small communities, by building speculative buildings. Speculative buildings in an industrial park are kind of like building pools for apartments to entice more people to live there. It's something that takes an industrial park, much like ours, and makes it, we think, more attractive and helps us to make it stand out just a little bit. Let's talk about why you want to build a speculative building. You'll hear from Matt Abbott in just a minute, who has a beautiful industrial park up in Zanesville, which sells itself. Many of our industrial parks, like ours, just didn't sell itself or set it apart from others. And if you look at experts, whether it's site selection, area development, or folks like Tanya, they're going to tell you that most folks look at 75% roughly of all prospects are looking for an existing building. And there's not a whole lot available. So having a building makes you more competitive and more attractive to companies looking to move. If you do it in the right way and use the right programs, it can be a great revenue source for your community and for your economic development program. Also, it helps your board and investors to focus because you've got a project right in front of it that you've got to work with all the time. It also can help build your understanding in the community of what economic development really does. And it helps you also to forces your community to decide if they are really serious about economic development, because you have a commitment to make and an asset that you have to sell. The question that always comes up is, how do you fund a speculative building? Well, there's never been a better time for small communities and small counties to enhance their industrial parks and sites by building a speculative building. Rural Industrial Park Loan Program came back last year. It's been refunded for the next cycle. It is a great program. The Ohio Development Service operates it. The community has to have 25% equity. You can do that with funds, with sites, with other things. They're very flexible. And then they'll fund 75% of that, half of that at a low interest, long-term loan, and half of it is a grant. So if you build a building, as soon as you're done, you have roughly 37% equity in the building for your community. It's a great deal. You can also use Jobs Ohio or Ohio SC to have programs to help with funding these buildings. Your local banks, one of our buildings, when there wasn't a rural industrial park program, funded ours and used terms similar to that. And you can also partner with the private sector, and that has its own risk and rewards. It takes some risk away from you, but takes some control away as well. But that's another way to do it. There's really no good reason not to be able to build one. I want to talk a little bit about how we did it and the way we went about it. We realized early on that our industrial park is it's a nice park, but it doesn't stand out from any place else. We're a small county. It wasn't something that sold itself. And we took reluctant builders that if we aren't going to invest and take risks in our own community, why should anybody else? And we decided that we will do projects that are good for our community, but are too risky or unprofitable for the private sector. We tried to have the philosophy informally of let's take risks, but let's not be stupid about it. But we'll take risks that are good for our community, figuring that if we don't make it betting on our community, well, what have we lost? There's two types of projects that we do. We do mission projects, which go along with our mission of economic development, creating jobs, creating tax base, other good things that help the community. And the second kind of project is a market project, which are projects that might be commercial, things that we fall into, things that where we can make money to support our mission. The good part about building a speculative building in your county is if you do it the right way, it will do both for you. It'll bring jobs, tax base, and it can make money for your economic development organization, do other things. Our history. In our small industrial park, which when we first built it sat vacant with no activity, We've built 3 buildings. We have one currently under construction that we hope will be done by the end of this month. We built the industrial park. And as reluctant builders, under the mission part of that, we've built a medical campus, a 13,000 square foot emergency room for Holzer Medical, an EMS, a rural health clinic, a college campus for Rio Grande Community College. And I say that to point out that we're a small county, not a lot of staff, 22,000 people. If we can do that, any community can do that out there. Our first 2 speculative buildings and our 4th used the Rural Industrial Park Loan Program, which helped us tremendously. Our 3rd building was financed by a local bank that gave us great terms and mirrored the program. So that's our 4 buildings in the park. Here's the important thing that you have to be committed to building a speculative building about. Our first building took over 5 years to find a tenant to lease it. Our second was leased during construction, and our 3rd was leased 6 months after our completion. There's nothing like going to, as you folks, if you build them will know, go to your board meetings, go to your commission meetings, and the question always comes up, well, do we have anybody for that building yet? And you hate going there and saying no, but it's a patient process. And you have to know in many of our counties, if you didn't have buildings, you may not have any prospects for your industrial park. This is the building that we have that we hope will be complete now, or hopefully be complete by the end of this month. It's just under 30,000 square feet, 6-inch floors, 30+ foot ceilings, and we build these as general as we can because we want to attract a more general type of audience for our buildings. If you build too specific, you narrow your audience, and in a rural county like ours, you really can't afford to do that. This one is just about $2 million and should be done by the end of this month. The most important part of building a speculative building to enhance your industrial park and your sites is marketing. Over 95% of the prospects we've had for our buildings over the years had a current facility within 120 miles of our county. Our market is not out west or overseas. Our market is someone in the region who is running out of room or just got a new contract and has to be in business in 90 days producing a product. And those are the folks that need a building. And because there are not a whole lot of buildings out there, it makes us very marketable. When you're marketing a building, use every outlet you can. Rural marketing is a whole lot different than the usual models that bigger city folks use. You have to talk to family, talk to alumni, talk to truck drivers. Anybody that knows something that might be coming up, you can pursue. Also, understand who your prospect profile is and what kind of businesses are drawn to your area. Don't chase rainbows. I tell the story maybe 10 years ago, there was a county commissioner in another county that was just elected. And I saw him at a meeting, and he's talked economic development, and he told me the first thing he was going to do is he's getting on a plane, he's flying to California, and he's going to go knock on doors in the Silicon Valley and bring businesses to his county. Well, you appreciate the enthusiasm and the energy, but that's not our market, and that's not going to work. Our businesses, at least for our projects, are within a short distance. And also, don't forget local employers that need to grow. When we had our 3rd building, a local employer had a new contract, needed more space, didn't have it, and moved into that building. If we didn't have that building, it's likely that employer would have left our county and gone to a building in West Virginia. So it's also a retention and expansion part of that process. If you build one to enhance your park, just some words of experience that we've gone through, and this is another way of saying these are the mistakes I've made and learned from. Market your building to everyone all the time. Don't underestimate the power of spreading the word through your contacts in your community. Let your community know what's out there and let them talk to folks as well. Spend money on landscaping and maintenance. Make sure your building is landscaped just like it was in Dublin or Hilliard or somewhere else. Make sure it looks great because you don't know who looks at it when you're not there. Remember to budget for interim financing, for mowing, for utilities, for modifications to the building. When you get a tenant, have that money available. Always with your community and to your board, under promise and over deliver to both the community and to the prospect. Don't get expectations too high. And the other important thing is when you get funding, that's great. When you start construction, that's great. Finishing construction is great. But you only have success when the building is occupied and has new employees. That's when it's a real success. So I would tell you that if you want to take your park, your sites to the next level of marketability, build a speculative building. You will sell it. If you look on the Ohio SC site and Jobs Ohio site in Southeast Ohio, there are very few available new buildings. And there's a reason for that. It's because businesses take them and create jobs. I appreciate it. Donna, thank you for the introduction, and Tanya for your presentation as well.
Thank you, Perry. We appreciate your joining us and sharing your experience with us on spec building development. We now welcome Matt Abbott as our final presenter. Matt is the Executive Director of the Zanesville-Muskingum County Port Authority. Matt has experience helping to fill the Eastpointe Business Park in Zanesville, and will share about this during his presentation. In addition, he's been instrumental in the development of a new industrial park off of I-70, the National Road Business Park. Matt is active on numerous boards within his community and earned his Ohio CED in 2019. Matt, thank you for joining us.
Thank you, Donna. I appreciate the invitation, and it's always great to hear presentations from Tanya as well as Perry. When he mentioned the build it and they will come, I kind of had flashbacks to Kevin Costner in the Field of Dreams. So very great expression, but just want to talk about the Eastpointe Business Park. The Eastpointe Business Park was two farms that were purchased in Muskingum County, just north of the city of Zanesville in 1998. The negotiation for purchase of this property was a per acre fee, and then upon sale of developable acreage, there would be a royalty that would be given back to the family in a trust. So when you look at purchasing ground for development of business parks, for quasi-governmental public use, there's a lot of different ways to go about the execution of a purchase agreement. And this one is very unique, and it's been very successful for Muskingum County in its time. The pros to the site, so the good things that are happening to the site, are some of the things that Tanya had outlined from a site selector standpoint. The assets are interstate access within 2.5 miles of a 4-lane highway, Interstate 70. Class A rail is adjacent to the site. Workforce at the time in 1998, the economy was flourishing at that point, similar to what it is today. We had a very active and vibrant workforce and continue to have that to this point. Educational facilities, Ohio University has a campus in Zanesville, as well as Muskingum University and Zane State. So boding very well for workforce and workforce training as far as education and then the quality of life component. The obstacle which most of us deal with in Southeast and Eastern Ohio is in the 70s, the mining. Strip mine, deep mine, and a lot of this 1,500 acre had been mined in the past. In 1999, shortly after the purchase of the property, a tenant was identified for the business park. Dollar General made an investment to purchase 250 acres in the park, and at the time built a 1.1 million square foot fulfillment facility. Currently, that company continues to flourish. They have 820 employees and run 3 shifts. And it's a Fortune 500 company that give a lot of credibility to the Eastpointe Business Park and the business park itself. Really the first tenant that you would get into a new business park is critical for other companies to look to locate. They kind of give the business park at the time the stamp of a proven destination to be successful and do business in the community. Bimbo Bakeries, it's been, name has changed a few times. Started out as Wendy's New Bakery, and they supplied buns just to Wendy's. It's been purchased 2 separate occasions, Eastpointe and now Bimbo, and Bimbo is one of the world leaders as far as bakeries are concerned. They do a lot of artisan buns as well as Wendy's buns, Burger King, Chick-fil-A, Panera. A lot of different buns with this facility, and it also has a sister facility located in Muskingum County as well. But their facility is 150,000 square feet. and they're located at Eastpointe and the Airport Business Park and have over 320 employees. In 2006, the Bilco Company, which is an Amesbury Truth Company, broke ground just right next door to the bakery. And what they do is they manufacture ingress and egress windows and doors, and also do some different things as far as fire blankets and some safety apparatus at their site. They employ close to 37 people at their facility, and has been, a great partner in the community. And as the Eastpointe Business Park continues to grow, they are a good partner in assisting with that growth. Avon is a company that located in 2007, a Fortune 500 company. They built a LEED certified 600,000 square foot distribution center on 70 acres. Currently have almost 300 employees at their site and their location. The Job Ready Site program in 2008 was something that our community took advantage of. And this is a program that is being talked about again as far as the state budget is concerned, but also the OSIP program that Jobs Ohio has used. It stands to benefit us at our new business park, the National Road Business Park. But this program was about 2008, was started on this site to create a 100-acre pad compacted, again, strip mine, deep mine soils. So this was a pre-engineered fill that was used on this site in 2008. As a result of the Job Ready Site program, Halliburton in 2012 made the decision to invest in the Eastpointe Business Park, spending $100 million, and they have 551 employees today. And this site in North America is the only hub that Halliburton currently has, and they continue to do work in the service industry, oil and gas industry in the state of Ohio, Pennsylvania, West Virginia, and Eastern Kentucky, another Fortune 500 company located here. So as this goes with the businesses, there are needs and there are infrastructure that needed to be enhanced, be added to this site. The bakery brings in about 6 cars of flour a week still today on a rail spur that's owned and operated by the Port Authority. We also have Halliburton bringing in sand on the rail spur. We have a few other businesses that utilize the rail spur at the Eastpointe Business Park. Over the past year and a half, the Eastpointe Business Park has seen close to $400 million in capital investment. Amg Vanadium announced in 2019 a $300 million project. Amg Vanadium is a spent catalyst recycler, and they have a sister facility in a nearby county, Guernsey County, and they decided they needed to locate a separate facility. They were looking in Canada. They were looking out west in some other areas. They were looking down south as well. And we were very fortunate enough to have some of the attributes that they required as part of their site plan. Number one being a rail-served facility. They are a large water user. As we talk about infrastructure and how decisions are made to build out infrastructure now, how do you select and build infrastructure out for the future? Because in 1998, when this ground was purchased, I don't think that those folks at the time would see necessarily the picture of really what can happen with this park. They had great foresight, but I think with some of these companies coming in, it really knocked it out of the park. AMG is a spent catalyst recycler, so they take a byproduct from the refining industry and recycle it. This was product that was going into landfills previously. They extract vanadium, also nickel and moly in their facility. We hope they'll be operational here in 2021 and fully operational in 2022. The other expansion and improvements that continue to happen, just last year, Dollar General added 130,000 square feet to their facility for cold storage warehousing. This investment was almost $27 million. They also added air conditioning to the already existing 1.1 million square foot facility. And most of this was to enhance the quality of their employees in a working environment. Halliburton continues to add as well. They added 6 truck bays for a maintenance department within their facility. So, once these companies begin here, the cradle to grave concept, we continue to work with them here at the Port Authority. We continue to work with them as a community to enhance and help to facilitate their continued growth in our business parks. As part of these enhancements with Halliburton and Dollar General and the investment that they were taking on, we've been very fortunate to have the support of the Ohio Department of Transportation through our Transportation Improvement District and through their Jobs and Commerce team to be able to receive dollars to make repairs, to build new roads, to build turn lanes. Also, the Ohio 629 grant that was administered through Ohio Southeast and Jobs Ohio as part of these projects. And without these projects and these companies committing the dollars for the Eastpointe Business Park, and without the assistance of some of these state agencies, we would have to come up with a lot of this locally, which would really put us up against the wall as far as what we could do incentive-wise to attract and make sure companies will continue to invest here. We also repaved access road to Halliburton as part of their investment. And this just continues the ongoing improvements that need to be made in infrastructure to, again, try to entice further and future developments. And these road improvements, the Dollar General road improvements, the assistance in 3 grants through the 629 program, the TID program, we received almost a little over $275,000 to fix and enhance the roadway to the Dollar General facility. Some of the future improvements that are planned, we do have $1.3 million set aside for Amg Vanadium. So to surround their facility, we're adding a turn lane, widening a couple intersections to basically continue the work to create infrastructure, a solid infrastructure at our park. And then the beautification piece, and Perry touched on it a little bit, and that's something that we need to continue to get better at. The awe factor, the shock factor that you see doing the landscape and some of the cosmetic improvements. As this is a park that started in 1998 and is near closing out. We have some small parcels left, but nothing of the significant magnitude. And again, those people in 1998, their foresight and the things that they've seen, we've just been able to right now reap a lot of the benefits from that investment in 1998. And there's been a continued partnership with our local county commissioners, the city of Zanesville, the Port Authority, and the local trustees in Washington Township in this case. And without partnerships, intergovernmental partnerships, none of this would take place. None of this would happen. So we're very excited what the future holds. And we're very appreciative for what we have. And we're excited to continue to market our sites. So thank you, Donna.
Thank you, Matt. It's really exciting to see what hub of activity the Eastpointe Business Park has become for Zanesville and all the jobs that are home there at that industrial park. So we are going to, we have some questions we're going to throw out to our panel for discussion here. And again, if anyone who's watching has some additional questions they want to put out for the panel, please do post those in the chat and we'll get those to those shortly. So just want to start with a question about this element of risk that is involved for starting an industrial park. Perry and Matt, what have you, how have you overcome this in preparing your communities to undertake these this project of speculative development?
I would just start by saying the community has to be committed. You have to make a case for it. Also important with your community, especially with an industrial park, as Matt pointed out, it's a long-term commitment. You don't have success tomorrow, but it almost serves to serve a generation of your community as a place for jobs and progress. But you're not going to be successful if it's something that the community is not completely invested in. Matt, do you agree with that?
Yeah, I think that's very important. And, you know, looking at governments, it's taking a business approach to ROI, return on investment. So you're looking at property taxes, you're looking at income taxes, you're looking at dispensable income. You know, as a result of some of these parts, we can attribute some of these dollars being reinvested in our community. We have a joint economic development district, which is, you know, not contiguous to a city or taxing authority, but we can take parcels out in the county, and it's an ROI for us. So the Eastpointe Business Park, the money, the dividends that have come in over time have paid off the infrastructure investments. They pay the continuing infrastructure investments, but they've also allowed us to make other purchases like the new business park that's online just now at the National Road Business Park. So government doesn't always have to be the loser. You know, there are wins that we can get from the Port Authority and economic development, because good paying jobs are important. And that trickle down economics, that trickle down impact, that one $50,000 a year job has, we can sell that every day, you know, to our local folks and how that works to just thrive in your local economy.
Excellent. How about with marketing the sites and filling the parks? What have you done in marketing efforts? And how did you attract tenants into the parks?
Yeah, from our case, you know, site selectors, you know, we try to get in front of them as much as possible. You know, recently, Site Selectors Guild, we were on kind of almost like a speed dating scenario, talking to, and not that I have any experience of that, but someone told me. But just trying to get in front of people that have the direct contacts to businesses. You know, the leads through Jobs Ohio, keeping our things up to date, our website. You know, we do a lot of drone photography. We have a lot of newsletters that go out and just trying to get the word out. We also try to use business to business communication. That's been good for us in the past because some of our larger corporations, they have companies that they are sister companies or companies that they have affiliations with. So we try to utilize that and look at the, you know, who they're producing product for, who are some of the people they do business with, to try to locate them closer to the companies that we already have existing.
I would add, from a smaller county, we don't do as much speed dating as we do a long courtship process. But we don't do necessarily site selectors, but ours are almost one-on-one with identified prospects. So it's a little different.
Well, and if I can jump in, there, Donna, the key here is when you think of site selection consultants, only 20 to 30% handle projects. So the key is, I guess, two things. Number one is that you have a website and the ability for folks from anywhere on the globe to find your product, but also that you have the critical decision-making criteria available for those folks, in addition to us, to make a decision. So when you talk about marketing for sites and buildings and product that's ready, the key is that you have the data that the client is looking for, that they can find it easily and be able to make a decision based off of it. And that's usually via the website now. So,
Tanya, what are some changes that you've seen over the years in terms of approach to site selection, and how has that process changed in terms of how community can be ready for the site selection projects?
yeah, that's a great question, Donna. Donna's funny because she knows I've been doing this a long time. So, yeah, and over the last 30 years, it's just literally that the expectations have evolved. So, okay, 30 years ago when we used to site plants, okay, where the site did not have to be ready, quote unquote, with infrastructure there and ready and available. Now that's not the case. Now the site has to be ready with, you know, excess capacities in addition to the infrastructure being to the boundaries, so that the risk gain is so much greater now than it used to be on, you know, constructability, and then so much more focus is literally on what's in the dirt versus, everybody talks about transportation, et cetera. Those logistics modeling, that's all done before everybody has to worry about, their transportation. But the key is everybody's got to really be champions of their site data. And that it has to be a quantifiable decision now versus a warm and fuzzy good feeling. Quality of life is important, but it's only after the site can be vetted quantifiably via access to infrastructure, et cetera, in addition to labor force. So all of that has changed. In addition to this virtual world, it was just, forgive me everybody, but it's whacked everything out. But it adds a new layer for our clients to be able to evaluate sites and communities without boots actually being on the ground. And that's very different now. So you got to be in command of your data. You got to know your data, and you got to be able to present it efficiently and effectively, or you'll be eliminated. That's kind of how it's evolved.
Okay, thank you. And this is for all of you. What do you suggest for a community that wants to start an industrial park, doesn't have land identified? How do they start to find land for a new industrial park? And then what process do you follow for determining whether it's a good site for development?
If I can jump in, because we love to do this. Chase your infrastructure lines, folks. Okay, because that's the most expensive and the longest schedule of anything. So if you can do anything, do this right. Choose your sites. You choose your sites smart, so you get your players in the room that can identify water, sewer, electric, natural gas, and fiber lines. Find out where all of those, do a layered analysis of where all of those actually crisscross up and what properties, where that crosshair happens, and let that be the start of where you identify these properties. Because and also look at your excess capacities. I mean, it's one thing to have the lines there, but if you don't have excess water and sewer, then excess is what our client uses, so the site is null and void. So from my perspective and our perspective, when we actually do help people develop industrial park sites, we get all the infrastructure folks in-house together first and figure out where the infrastructure is. So that's our.
That's exactly the way we went about forming the National Road Business Park. Yeah, the price of infrastructure is astronomical, and it would drive your price per acre up significantly to even recoup your investment. But the first thing we did was we looked at our existing business parks. If a community has existing business parks, chances are they have adequate infrastructure already there. So how do you build upon existing business parks? We looked at that, and we didn't have a way to do that. So that led to the purchase. We identified 6 sites within 5 miles of 4-lane highway, being Interstate 70 in our community. And we looked at the infrastructure, the capacity, the size of the lines. We talked to our utility partners and made a final decision to purchase the ground we purchased.
And I would add, this is the one place where the community really needs to spend money to bring in outside folks to look at this, especially in small communities. We don't have clear eyes always looking at that. Bring in site selectors, engineers who can look at it from a business perspective. What's the best site? Not what somebody's cousin or somebody's brother thinks is a great piece of land. Spend the money and have experts do it.
Excellent. Thank you all for sharing your expertise and all your experience and wisdom in for site development. Really appreciate your time this afternoon. We are just about the end of our session here, so want to turn this back over to Faith. And again, thank you for participating in this panel this afternoon.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you so very much, Donna, Tanya, Perry, and Matt. That was really some very important key lessons in local development, retention, and expansion. And just a reminder that everybody will be able to review this and see this on the emails that will be sent to you of the recording. So thank you so much to the presenters, you presenters, and everybody today. We appreciate everyone's patience as we work through our technical issues. And thanks for remaining to the finish with us. We do hope to see you all here for the second day of the State of the Region Conference at 12 p.m. Eastern Standard Time tomorrow, Wednesday. We'll highlight some key sessions on workforce, such as our lesson-rich regional examples of recovery workforce and some nationally lauded water projects right here in Appalachia. Hoping to see everyone then. Thank you again for today's conversation and a good afternoon all around. Thank you.